The lines person, it's not going to do nothing.
There are tennis players who seem to have a supernatural capacity to turn fans completely against them. Thus, keep watching this video because you are going to see the 5 most notorious clowns in the history of tennis.
For you, it's normal. I don't care, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I know, because it's your father.
Starting with Stefanos Tsitsipas. There is a pattern of clown behavior that Stefanos Tsitsipas is beginning to build. For example, Tsitsipas took such a lengthy bathroom break during his match against Andy Murray at Flushing Meadows that the ATP was forced to make changes to regulations that had never before been altered in reference to the duration of restroom breaks. But that's not all. There were instances of balls landing in the audience at Wimbledon, body shots being taken at Kyrgios, and Stefanos shaking hands with Kyrgios in a manner that was quite frigid. These are just a few examples of the pranks that Tsitsipas has engaged in the past, which have left a lot to be desired about his behavior on the court. All things considered, it would seem that Stefanos Tsitsipas has taken things to a higher level.
I could do more with the ball today. I felt like I could just be much more creative.
In a press conference that took place during the ATP Finals, Tsitsipas made remarks that were derogatory about Andrei Rublev's tennis abilities. He said, "It's a terrible thing. I believe that I am a more capable player. I had the impression that I could do more with the ball today. I had the impression that I could be far more imaginative. It's not even necessary for me to mention that. My opinion is that it is fairly evident. But yes, he was successful despite the few resources that he had. He was able to win today by showing that he was able to truly take advantage of them." There seems to be a trend in which Tsitsipas abandons his sportsmanship whenever he suffers a defeat at the hands of a high-level opponent whom he had earlier anticipated he would be able to defeat.
Someone already there. The lines person, it's not going to do nothing. He already know the instruction.
Also, it seems that he exhibits the worst kind of sportsmanship when he is put in a scenario that is foreign to him, such as when he has been down in the score against both Murray and Kyrgios in the past. Getting out of difficulty, the finest players in the sport are known to dig deep and play their best tennis. However, Stefanos has earned a reputation in the past for turning to everything to get himself out of trouble, including taking toilet breaks, taking medical timeouts, and even hitting himself in the body. If the cold encounter that took place at Wimbledon was just in isolation, then it may be forgiven. On the other hand, this is just a tiny part of a bigger repertory of questionable behavior, which is regrettably growing more widespread. In light of the fact that someone with Tsitsipas's enormous potential and skill level should not resort to cheap excuses, whether on the court or off the court, it would be beneficial for him to work on eliminating these parts of his game. Without needing to engage in any of these shenanigans, he has already achieved the 3rd spot on the global rankings. Thus, it is not clear why he chooses to engage in such behavior in particular circumstances. When he is under intense strain, it seems like the worst qualities of his sportsmanship are brought to the forefront. Tsitsipas, on the other hand, has plenty of time to mature, and he is still very young. In the future, it would not come as a surprise to us if he showed a significant improvement in terms of his sportsmanship.
How about that? Enjoyed that.
These days, the magnitude of misery in men's tennis is increasingly measured starting at 1 and going all the way up to Benoit Paire as the 2nd clown in tennis history. On his path to a record of 1-9 in 2021, the 34-year-old player has been fighting his demons, himself, the epidemic, and pretty much each and every reason he could think of. However, in spite of all this, due to the fact that he is now ranked 18th on the ATP World Tour, he would have been more than deserving of the opportunity to attempt to qualify for the Olympics. But what exactly is the matter with Paire? For those of you who may have been living under a rock, Paire is now in the middle of an unprecedented run of terrible performances. You have to understand that Paire is not just competing in each and every match, but he is also losing them. When he does compete, he is not even making an effort to win. His dismal performance has been masked by his pranks both on and off the court, and this trend is expected to continue. His bad moments began as being pretty innocuous and entertaining, but over the course of time, they have developed into something that is almost sad. There was a moment when he criticized the organizers of the Australian Open at the beginning of the season when he said that the way they had treated the players had been dishonorable. There were a number of games that were a complete and utter failure, and he made very little effort, if any at all. Do you remember the occasion when he was penalized 1 point for spitting on the court while competing in the Argentina Open? In addition to that, there have been innumerable remarks made both off the field and online. The things that Paire has expressed after he was eliminated in the first round of the Rolex Monte Carlo Masters are something that has stood out to us as being very noteworthy. According to what he claimed, the circuit has become defective. I could care less about whether I win or lose under these circumstances. Currently, I do not possess the spark. In other words, Paire does not care all that much about tennis. In the year 2021, when the world was in the midst of a pandemic that never ends, this may be the most accurate and straightforward statement that he has ever made since he began speaking. It is precisely this that demonstrates how much of a tennis clown he is. However, we are not quite certain that the answer is for the ATP to step in, at least not for as long as his clown moments continue to be relatively minor. In the event that this was normal employment, then an individual like Paire would be terminated. But in this situation, what exactly can the ATP do? Should the guy be suspended despite the fact that he is still eligible to compete in the events? We do not feel comfortable with the idea of setting this precedent. One of the most amusing aspects of this situation, if there is anything that can be considered amusing at all, is the fact that Paire has been kicked out of the Olympics on many occasions in the past. After Paire had been absent from the athletes' village for an excessive amount of time, the French Olympic Committee decided to fire him from his position in Brazil 5 years ago. Now that he is in Tokyo, at least he will not leave his house until the very beginning of the trip. Hopefully, this will provide him with the comfort he needs. The third clown is Fabio Fognini. In recent years, Fabio Fognini has been one of the most risk-taking players in the tennis game. Achieved the highest position in his career at number 13. He seemed to have reverted back to his previous clown behavior. In his outing in Shanghai, he was defeated by Chuhan Wang, a Chinese wildcard who was rated outside of the top 500. This result came as a startling and unexpected surprise to him. Consequently, the Italian felt that it would be more convenient to demonstrate his hand talents as well, and he exited the court with his middle finger plainly displayed. Prior to that, his most vehement outburst occurred in Hamburg during the summer of 2021, when he referred to his victorious opponent, Filip Krajinovic, as Zingaro de merda, meaning shitty gypsy. The rudeness and, in the case of the latter, racial connotation were the aspects of these two events that were the most upsetting. In the years that have passed, he has always been a quick-tempered person. Nonetheless, most of his outbursts were directed against himself, his team, or at the very worst, the umpires. Despite the fact that he was not much of a role model, he used to be something of a character, and some of his outbursts created quite a show on the internet over the years. You were able to view some of his clowning moments in a second.
They have to be done by the organisers as well. Just don't like to.
His well-known slogan, Non mollare mai, which translates to never give up, seems to have been substituted by the phrase metterci la fascia. According to Italian media, he often used these remarks to defend himself after his outbursts. This meant that he was aware that he had been in the wrong, but at least he was accepting responsibility for his actions individually. On the other hand, he can be seen in the video throwing a fit at his corner and, most importantly, his father. It is possible that Fognini needs to begin contemplating his obligations before he exposes the worst features of his personality to the public. With his impressive track record and impressive ability on the court, Mohamed Leani is widely regarded as one of the most respected umpires on the circuit. However, in two separate instances, the Italian had a lot of things to complain about, almost to the point of threatening the chair. It would seem that this attitude is not precisely held by the player. How does it turn out when two storms collide with the ground? In spite of the fact that some of the spectators believed they were going to see a boxing event, this video essentially demonstrates the consequences that the situation had on a tennis court. The uncontested bad boy of tennis, Nick Kyrgios, who is 28 years old, is once again generating headlines for his incredible racket abilities, as well as his less-than-ideal behavior when competing on the court, which means he is the fourth clown in tennis history. In recent times, the Australian professional tennis player and his opponent in the third round of Wimbledon, Stefanos Tsitsipas, have made a stir due to their lack of sportsmanlike behavior. Additionally, Kyrgios demanded that his sparring partner be blamed for aiming a ball toward the crowd, which led to Tsitsipas attempting to aim balls at him. Afterward, during their press conferences after the match, Tsitsipas referred to the Australian as a bully and said that he had an evil side. Kyrgios, on the other hand, referred to the Greek as soft and asserted that he was not light.
She's drunk out of her mind in the first row, speaking to me in the middle of the game.
Over the course of his current run at Wimbledon, Kyrgios has been fined a total of $14,000 for audible vulgarity and for spitting in the direction of an audience member whom he called disrespectful. Kyrgios has said that the audience member was insulting him. In addition, he recently breached the event's usual dress code, which required attendees to wear all white, by donning red shoes and a red hat. Thus, tennis fans are now discussing all of the unfavorable things that he has done in the past as a result of this most recent run of issues. Ever pondered the reason behind Kyrgios' reputation as the bad boy of tennis?
Get me someone now!
Abuse against officials, including the umpire, the line judge, and even the ball kids, including calling them names, cursing at them, and throwing items at them, whether intentionally or not. He has violated every single one of these officials, and against other players, including aiming the ball at Rafael Nadal at Wimbledon in 2019, participating in verbal altercations with his opponents, and disparaging them in interviews. During his time at the tennis court, he has been known to throw tennis balls, rackets, and even folding chairs, in addition to strolling off the court whenever he felt like it, marching out in the middle of a match to smash rackets, and being accused of intentionally tanking games that were not going his way. He has also been accused of doing these things.
Will you be able to get a white towel or no?
He has also responded to those who heckled him. He's been known to vent his displeasure at the most little of things. In 2016, he participated in the Australian Open and voiced his dissatisfaction with the music that he said he could hear coming from the crowd. He destroyed 2 rackets and asked for a drink as he was competing in the French Open in 2017. In point of fact, Kyrgios is known to like a drink, and it has been claimed that he was spotted drinking and socializing at a bar in London the night before a crucial match against Nadal at Wimbledon 2019. Additionally, at the 2019 Rogers Cup, he became irritated with the fact that his towel had the tournament's logo, and he asked that he be given a white towel instead. After that, Kyrgios continued to refuse to play for another 20 minutes, which was the amount of time it took for the authorities to locate the towels for him. Also, during the Laver Cup in 2019, Kyrgios suffered a defeat at the hands of Roger Federer. Thus, he attributed his loss to a hot chick in the audience, whom he said was responsible for his inability to concentrate.
I got fined $15,000.
This is what it says.
No way.
That's actually not bad.
But it's bad for tennis.
As far as the figure crunchers are concerned, Kyrgios has piled up more fines than any other player in the whole history of the sport. In the past, he has claimed to have been fined a total of $800,000 up to this point, and that was before his outbursts at Wimbledon.
They compete against me, they push me, and they've made my fitness pretty high as well.
Kyrgios prefers basketball over tennis, said a report that was published on the website Tennis in the year 2015. It was reported that the tennis star said that his parents encouraged him to participate in the sport when he was a teenager. It was revealed to him that he does not really like the sport of tennis. He went on to say that when he is on the tennis court, he enjoys playing for the audience in order to put on a bit of a show. He continued by saying, to put it simply, I adore basketball and I adore the sport. I have always done so. The final tennis player on our list is Hugo Gaston, who is a phenomenal clown, and here's why. Immediately after the controversial withdrawal of French tennis player Hugo Gaston on match point in a Verona Challenger match, the tennis community resorted to social media to express their disapproval. In the first set, Gaston prevailed against Marco Trungelliti. However, he was defeated by the Argentine in the second set. So, in the final set, Gaston was defeated by Trungelliti by a score of 2-5 and 0-40. Therefore, Gaston made the decision to resign from the match and prevent Trungelliti from achieving a definitive win. This decision was made rather than playing a last point that would have ensured a thrilling comeback victory for his opponent. Surprisingly, the French player was able to go towards the net and shake his opponent's hand, but it seemed that he was not in a position to face one more serve from the Argentine. Despite the fact that practically all of the 3 sets were played, the match was decided by a walkover. Trungelliti raised his arms in excitement once the match was over. Gaston, on the other hand, was met with rapid and severe criticism, with many observers calling the conduct of the French player exceedingly suspicious and reeking of a move tied to betting. The announcement of Gaston's retirement elicited a flood of outraged replies on social media, with several people demanding that he be disqualified from the ATP Tour. One person made the observation that these are the actual people who require a lengthy suspension. Another put it this way: it's time for a nice long suspension and a huge fine. One more person chimed in saying, should be banned from the next tournament. Ellen Perez, a tennis player from Australia, added her voice to the wrath of a large number of tennis fans all over the globe when she said that the retirement was quite suspicious. Renee Stubbs, a former Australian player and coach, also urged that the ATP Tour should conduct an investigation into the event. This was in response to increasing suspicions that Gaston's dubious retirement may be connected to betting, and that agency should not be had to pay up since he did not technically lose. She stated, I don't see how a player could possibly not play one more point if he isn't so severely hurt that he is screaming and rolling about on the ground with a catastrophic injury. What an absurdity.
You okay?
This year, Gaston has already been at the center of controversy when he was fined $120,000 for dropping a ball onto the court just before his opponent tried to make a shot on set point. The controversial event took place in April during the Madrid Open, and it was directed at Borna Coric. Despite the fact that the rules said that the umpire ought to have replayed the point, Coric struck a winning stroke off the shot, which finally stood. Following a further investigation into the event, Gaston was given the hefty fine that he had been owed. Which of the 5 clowns in the history of tennis do you think is the worst? Please let us know in the comment section below. And that wraps things up. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Please hit the subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.